Welcome to She Says with your host, Stephanie Regalado. She Says guests share stories from their challenges to successes and, most importantly, the journey of womanhood woven alongside the collaboration of sisterhood. From self, love, friends and family, to hot topics, career, and world views, Stephanie and her guests discuss matters with utmost openness and honesty. So let's hear what she says. Here's Stephanie.
Hello, welcome to She Says. I'm your host, Stephanie Regalado. I'm thrilled today. Actually, I'm thinking of all my communication stances and everything to have Tara Weir with me. She's the founder, owner of Powerful Connections Now. Tell us a little bit about tell me a little bit about what exactly your mission is with your company.
My mission is to help people connect in the immediate moment, because every conversation we have is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to understand each other, to not necessarily agree, but to connect with each other.
You know, I was thinking that Jennifer Evans, good friend of both of ours, owner of Encore Events, helped put on the League of Education Voters breakfast, the first of its kind last Thursday in Spokane. And it's a breakfast meeting, and I have this policy of maybe only doing one breakfast the whole year, and it's the one I put on in March.
Fair.
But I was intrigued by the work that they were doing, just hearing about it. But I still hadn't had my attitude fully adjusted to embracing it. And I wanted to start my morning every day that way after I left. Being able to connect with those I've seen in the past, just because each time you solidify and you connect even deeper and on better levels. And I met new people, and I met friends I have on Facebook and social media who we've never met in person.
Putting faces with the names, I love that.
Yeah, so truly, it is a brilliant thing. How do you help empower? Are your clients primarily women, or are they men and women?
Currently both. I work with corporate training groups, and so I help businesses and their leadership team. They identify people that they want to really help grow in their ability to have presence, and whether that's formally or informally communicating and presenting information. So right now it's currently a mix, and it's a wide variety. My real passion right now, and the direction I'm taking it, is to really focus on women, to really dial in that population, because we need more women transforming that voice that limits them and holds them back, and having that shift inside of them so they can really speak their voice and show up the way they really want to show up. And also, on the flip side, have some tools and tricks and tips to manage the barriers that are part of our culture that tend to limit a woman really being heard. So,
what are some of those barriers do you see from your view?
Oh, yes. So a lot of the women that I speak with reflect on their experiences in the workplace, and that there's oftentimes, if it's male dominated, they're just not heard. They are it's as if they haven't even spoken, or they are at the table, and in order for them to be heard, they have to be something other than really who they are. So it's really fun to explore that topic and to talk about ways that they can just show up in a physically, body language wise, they can show up, the words we use. I mean, we are constantly communicating to each other, constantly. We're constantly taking in messages and giving messages. And so,
and what percentage is language, body language?
Well, there's debate. I've been done a lot of studying about this, because there's definitely debate on the percentage. The truth is, a lot is coming from body language. The numbers that have been written about are really when there's heated conversation, like if there's conflict, then often if there's an elevated emotion, the words drop, and the percentage they have on the records is 7%. Of just words, so that's very small. So when we're elevated and we have elevated emotion, then that's when body language is huge. And so usually that's about 55 or more percent. And then often the sounds that we make are like 38%. So that's really high. And if I do my math right, I think that's right. But it just basically shows that the more we're really engaged, and if we're stimulated in some kind of emotional way, then body language is enormous.
It is. And I remember reading about body language one time, and it talked about, it was focused on women. So when you are standing and you kind of cross your ankles while you're standing, that is a, not submissive, but kind of a girlish stance versus a power stance. So I was trying to go back to the times I had done that, because I realized I had done that often.
Yes.
And wonder if I felt like I was stepping down a little bit, but I'm still not sure about that one.
It's really common. It's really common for women to do that. The interesting thing about body language that I'm really enjoying, the more I study it over all these years, is there's the body language and how it affects my audience. So like, I have this stance, what does my audience think?
Yes.
As well as, okay, I have this stance, what does that do to me and my body, my understanding and my beliefs about myself? And so the interesting thing is that even if I don't necessarily feel submissive or I don't necessarily feel diminished with my legs crossed.
Yes.
The audience could be reading that.
Right.
And it could be vice versa. The audience might not think anything of the posture, but if I'm holding a certain posture that really triggers limiting beliefs in me or hesitation or anxiety, those kinds of things. And that's actually why I started my own business. This is why.
Yeah.
I was teaching at Gonzaga and I was working with first years, and I had done it for about 3 years. And semester after semester after semester, the young women in particular would step up in my presentation course, and they'd stand there with their legs crossed, with their bodies turned, with their selves shut down. And I just saw this next generation has the same hesitation and self-doubt and not enough, and I want to be agreeable, and I want to, you know. And seeing that, I thought, oh my gosh, this is a problem. And I know that we in business, and I thought, you know, these students have this covered. It's a required course at this university, and I thought they're good. They're covered here.
Right.
It's the women in business that we don't even know about these things, and we're not unconsciously we're communicating things that we may not intend to communicate.
Right. Well, I think unconsciously we don't realize that there's this whole thing with women where we try to be smaller than we are, where we've learned throughout our life that our presence needed to be controlled. We need to be polite. We
don't
need
take too much space.
Yes, don't be loud. I mean, be ladylike and all of these things. And when I was thinking about the crossing of my legs, I'm tall and I wear heels, so it makes me even taller. And I have not been one to hunch down that way, but there are ways that I've tried to make myself less imposing. Because I do feel like sometimes I'm this giant woman walking in, and but I don't want to be intimidating that way too, as if I can help the size that I was born the height that I was born at, etc. But it's fascinating. What are the challenges that you see most with your female clients as far as how they, because I've noticed that so many events, and we've actually been at many similar events, I really appreciate knowing who's in the room and giving everyone a chance to hop on the mic. I was at a partner appreciation luncheon for WSECU during the summer, and I noticed a couple of people that I knew from nonprofits that I'd never met, and I was trying to remember their names. They looked familiar, so I asked the host if there was any way that we could just do a quick introduction of the room. I think there were 5 or 6 round tables of 8 or 10, and you can fly through that, and it's a valuable piece.
Yes, absolutely.
And there were so many people in that room, even though they were in powerful positions, that shied away, wouldn't stand up. I was one of the very few people who actually stood up.
That's awesome.
Well, I mean, not everyone can see you, and I still want to take, like you're saying, be present in that moment and make use of making those connections. And sometimes being seen is as valuable as seeing others in those moments. So I'm going to hand it over to you now that I've spilled all that out about what you noticed.
Yes, and interesting that I'm going on social media more. I'm pushing through that own barrier that I've had, and I'm breaking out. So buckle your seatbelt. Here I come. But my first and only so far was a few days ago, I guess last week, and I really I posted because I was absolutely called to say, after NABO, after our women's event that night before, I got on social media the next day and said, here are some tips about how to really use a microphone and to take the opportunity to be heard, and that we each have a gift to offer, And if we're not being heard and we're shrinking and we're playing small, then that's not going to be in the world. Right. So hold it a certain way so people can hear you. Turn it with your head so that when you're talking, it's not like the sound goes in and out, you know. Right. Be willing to stand up and not hide, because we all have something to offer. And I want every person, and particularly women in business or women in the business world, to be heard so that we can have our voices be heard and bring that beauty, bring those qualities that women tend to bring more to the workplace, like relationship orientation, like collaboration, those kinds of things. Bring them. Yeah. And if we hold ourselves back, we don't even so many people, I don't think, realize that opportunity in that one moment to stand up, speak what you're about, share what you have to offer, and be in the world.
And also, one thing that's really helped me is that I know it's not about Stephanie Regalado.
No, it's about your purpose and your mission.
Well, and it's about so many things that if I'm investing my time in something passionately, which especially business owners are doing, and people in leadership roles, et cetera, driving forces in any business, whether you have ownership or not, you obviously feel a connection to that. It's obviously good work, where we invest so much time with the work that we do, that to not take the opportunity to let that, and we're the conduit for that messaging. So I've learned, like I've shared on social media, possibly even on the podcast, that I delayed starting the podcast for a while because I wanted to get myself back, lose some more weight, be a little healthier, stand the thought of being seen live by viewers, however many that may be. And I pretty much just had to just get over it. There's a reason I'm here, and there's a reason why this is what I'm being called to do, and I can't always just dig into that. But
that is right there the primary reason that I want to work more with women and focus on our gender, because we as a culture, we as women expect perfection. We expect to show up polished and perfect, and that holds us back, and we limit ourselves, and it impacts the world. The world is a better place when more women are in leadership. The economy's better, the environment's better, everything is better, and the science is showing that. And so, you know, that kind of perfectionism, and you know, I'm a recovering perfectionist, no question about it. I like to be polished, and now, don't get me wrong, that critic inside of me is what has brought me to a high level of good standard and great quality work that I do, and I'm proud of that. And if that critic inside of me is louder than the coach inside of me, then I'm getting in my way, and I'm not able to really bring what I'm meant to be and who I am meant to be and what I'm meant to bring to the world. So
and there's so much that we each have to shed and get out of the way of, and just get over ourselves.
And that is
like calling it out.
That is what I'm doing. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Now, I coach and train in presentation skills. That is an awesome tool, because what's more vulnerable than standing up in front of a group? Most people fear it.
Even people who do it as a career, it's not necessarily their favorite thing to do. They've had to get out of the way of
And so in that moment of discomfort, it is such a beautiful place and time to work on those limiting beliefs, those thoughts that hold us back. It's like, okay, let's explore that and let's transform that. So I've been really enjoying using this skill set of presentation skills as a tool or a vehicle for transforming and turning around some of the thoughts that hold us back.
I love that. So we're going to take a quick break and hear a message from our sponsors, who we couldn't be here without them, so we're grateful for those. And when we get back, I'd love to hear some of those ways that you encourage women and men to transform and learn their power pose, etc. We will be right back after a short break.
Welcome to Tom Sawyer Country Coffee.
Tom Sawyer Country Coffee only roasts the finest organic coffee for our signature blends. Enjoy a cup at our coffee shop and local businesses and organizations across the region.
I'm Tom Sawyer, and we choose the Pacific Northwest.
What? You haven't been to the library lately? Stop in today and see that the library is more than books. Spokane County Library District facilities feature on-site technology, including Wi-Fi, computers, and printers, as well as free use of meeting rooms. The Library District offers events and programs for all ages, From story times to career development and employer classes to Social Security workshops, our staff is well trained and happy to help. Find out more about your library at scld.org.
The economy is getting stronger, banks are lending again, and interest rates are at historic lows. Now is a great time to buy your dream home. The caring and knowledgeable professionals at Homes for You have been helping people just like you for over 20 years. They take the time to listen to what you want and will help you find just the right home in Washington or Idaho. Real estate is what we do at Homes for You, 928-5782, or visit online at homes4uspokane.com.
Welcome back to She Says. I'm Stephanie Regalado with Tara Weir. We were just talking about when I was first rocking this, after I got out of the way, realized it's not about me.
Nice.
It's actually about my guests. I just happen to be the person in the seat. But I would try to think out to make sure I kept the flow moving and there weren't any weird, awkward spots because we're live. Then I would jot down a few questions, but I found myself I realized I wasn't in the moment because my guest would be answering a question and my mind would be scrambling about, okay, what's next? How do I keep this conversation going? And that's really not my style anyway. I just free flow it. Yeah. And once I could scrub my brain of all of that, all those preconceived or bullet points and everything, and just be present, which brought me back to the moment of what you were talking about. That's really where your coaching is, to be present in those opportunities.
That's it.
Of in person.
And you'd asked me about ways to transform this before the break. Yeah. And it really ties in because it's a combination of strategically preparing, so getting your thoughts through and clear about your purpose.
Right.
Who am I talking to? Where am I going to be talking? What's the intention of that? What's the best content to include, right? So have your preparation really strategic. Yeah. But then you move into delivery, and that is about being present and genuine. So it's saying, okay, I can be clear about how I want to show up, and then I can be present in the moment and hold this information lightly and trust that what will come will be what needs to be said and heard, and not having that tight grip of perfection, but just saying, here I am. And so it's not a coincidence that presentation and being present is the same root word, right? So how am I presenting? Well, we're always presenting. Yeah. And the question is, how present am I in my presence?
Well, and I think a lot of us have sat through a presentation where you realize the person on the stage had it all mapped out, and they went with that map regardless of who was sitting in the seats, because you felt a total disconnect.
Right.
You could have been watching it on TV, because there's no, and the benefit of being in person is that exchange and being felt as though you're being seen, and they're reading their guests.
It becomes a relationship, and it becomes a dialogue, even if one person is presenting and the audience isn't necessarily answering questions. Being able to show up in a way that creates that energy of conversation and inclusion to your audience, and being able to roll with that kind of adjustment, that a speaker can make or a leader can make. I think that's the crux of being able to really be a great leader, is to adjust and know, okay, this isn't landing, this isn't resonating, this isn't working. How, by reading their body language, which is obvious because it's showing all the time. We may or may not know it, but it's happening all the time. Then we can adjust. That's a great leadership. skill.
I think also, as far as like really honing that down to networking events and those one-on-one connections or even small group connections, I prefer it if someone asks questions, and I prefer to ask questions. And the old way, I think, used to be you come with your message. Everyone had their 30-second elevator pitch, and they're flashing out their business cards before you even really know if it's a business card you want to take. And it is a back and forth thing. It is a dialogue with all of that. Yes. So how do you help people be very present in those moments? And what are your tips? That's my own mechanism, but what are your tips
for like a networking
for
event?
A networking event.
Well, one of the things that just came to mind, Chris Angel is an incredible business coach, and one of the things he said recently on a podcast was, and it's really about the political campaign, the different people putting flyers on our doors and that kind of thing. He's like, build your relationship before you even begin to market what it is you're trying to sell or offer. And so I love the idea of the questions because it's really about the relationship. It's saying, you know, you may want what I have to offer, but right now it's about getting to know each other, and then it'll be clear if we're a fit for what I have to offer or what you have to offer. Yeah. So I see that as the overriding view. If I can go into a networking event with that perspective, with that filter, knowing that I'm going to learn about them, and I'm not coming with a prepared message. Now I know in my heart why I'm there as what I have to offer, and I'm clear about that, but the ultimate purpose there is to connect with people. So in networking events, the kinds of questions that I really encourage people to ask are open-ended questions, not the kinds of questions that just give you a one-word answer, right? It's like, let's create
you learn that
exploring.
As a parent, too, not to ask your children yes or no
How was your day? Fine.
Right.
Or, okay, so in science, what was it that really captured your attention today? You know, like, let's think about this.
Yes, yeah.
So that's, I think, a really important human skill, but I think when we're connecting as business owners and as people, that we want to bring curiosity.
Let's go back to those round tables, and suddenly a microphone is going to be passed around. How can people become comfortable, at least enough to stand up and without their heartbeat racing through their head? Because you have those moments of anxiety where you have that quick sweat and and then you're worried about your voice being jittery.
Right.
And during the Women in Business Leadership conference, the Women Business Conference in Spokane a few weeks ago, when Liz Gilbert was speaking, she said the one in control is the most relaxed person in the room.
Yes.
So how can you get to that space where you can be relaxed, confident?
That's a great question.
Even when the microphone comes out.
Right. And I think that is actually a journey. And I think that part of letting go of perfection is saying how I show up is enough. And if I strategically think about what it is that I might want to say, and then trust my delivery and my presence in the moment, that's enough. And it's when we get really attached to, I've got to say the right words at the right time with the right everything, that we lose it. And what I say to all of my clients is, I want you to start becoming aware. Just start paying attention to your thoughts. What are my thoughts right before I'm going to step up? When I'm in training groups, I'm working with groups and I'm training them, almost always we're really comfortable with each other. So someone will almost say out loud what they're thinking. My most recent client said, well, I'm not really prepared, but I'll step up. And so we explored. I was like, well, what does prepared mean to you? And he had made notes. He had thought about it. He had practiced and all that. What he was really saying was, I'm not perfect yet. I haven't mastered this. And because of what he was telling himself, that I'm not prepared, he stood up. He was flustered. And as soon as we were able to talk about the fact that where he was enough, and that we are in practicing mode, you know, this is all about experience. If we can take the lens of I'm learning, always, always, life is a learning lab. So what if you're talking to the big, important group and things don't go as you expect? You learn. It's finding that balance between reflection and critic of ourselves. And I think that's the key, that if somebody does stand up and they do flush red because they're so anxious about what they might be thinking or saying or how it's going to come across. I think it's just continuing to pay attention to, what are my thoughts? What are my feelings about this? And then again, what's my purpose? How can I get myself out of the way? Get really deeply connected with our heart's call, our soul's call. And if I can get clear about that and I can step up in that, then I can be relaxed about that. It's not about performing, it's about being present.
Exactly. Well, and there's so many opportunities. And once I had to shift in my mind too, it's an opportunity for, and because I've started to view everything as an education. That's it. Even within my own, the way I operate and the way I think, and I have a lot of self-dialogue, and I'm guessing I'm not the only one.
Oh, no.
But I love what you said about the critic and the coach. If the critic's voice is louder in your head, then what?
then the coach doesn't get to do their work, and it's the coach that's really going to help us get out of our own way.
Because we even have and I'm just talking interpersonally too, the critic and the coach.
Oh, this is exactly
that's
what I'm
you're
talking
saying.
about.
Okay, good.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, that's the dialogue that's going on.
Yes.
Well, at least that's the dialogue I know I'm aware of. My critic used to be the driver, and she held me back, and she was terrified, and she was the one that said, no, not enough. You're not enough yet. No, practice more. No, stay up late. No, over prepare. Memorize. You have to, what? And then she was the one that as soon as I sat down from when my speaking happened, she was the one that was like, you screwed it up. You should have said this. You shouldn't have said that. You said this. Yeah. Oh, you forgot to say this. Yeah. She was the one that was in the driver's seat. Yeah. And now she's also the driver that expects a really high standard. So thank you, critic, for helping me have a good standard, right? And when she's in charge, then I'm paralyzed. So when she's in charge, the coach doesn't get to do what she does. And I'm not saying the coach isn't giving tips on ways to improve, but the coach is strengths-based.
It's different,
She's the one that comes from the perspective of when I do sit down, I say to myself, what is one or two things that I think I did well?
Oh, I like that.
The negative comes in a second. The negative comes in a breath.
Yes.
It's training myself to say, what are one or two things that I did well that I think I would do again? And then I give myself permission to say, okay, so what might I do differently next time? Because there's always going to be next time.
Right.
And I'm learning, and it's okay.
Well, I've realized to have as much grace for myself as I do for others too.
That's it.
There's part of my personality that just comes out. You can't hide it. Yeah. And it might be a little dorky at times, or it might not be as polished as I would like. I'm kind of like, God, I think that's kind of who I am, part of who I am, and I just have to have some grace for myself there. And I see that so often in others because I truly want to just have that raw, real, we're all in the same space, where we all have the same, I always say it, spectrum of possibility within us. And we're all just dancing along that at any given time. And if we can also, in our own paths, understand that everyone else is struggling on theirs, no matter how it may look.
Yeah, we're all, like Brene Brown says, we're all just doing our best in any given moment. And what my job is to keep growing my coach and to help my clients grow their coach, to keep having her show up and encourage me and remind me of the good and remind me of my purpose. That's the real work. So, now the power poses and the posture, and here's a tip for women. Keep your hands away from your neck and your face and your hair. Audiences evaluate that unconsciously. They evaluate it as weakness. And it's a woman hiding. It's also some of that girly, I'm going to use this instead of really my voice. So those are valuable, and I have a million of those, and those are immediate impacts we can make in our showing up, how you hold a microphone and those kinds of things.
I love that so much because so many people are doing live videos now on Facebook and Instagram and everything. And I notice so many women, I know when you're doing a live, you see your own reflection.
You do, and you adjust as you're talking.
And you're talking, and it's so often, it distracts me from truly listening to them because I feel like I'm just watching them gaze at themselves.
Totally. So pin your hair back. If your hair hangs, pin your hair back, and then let go of how you appear. And I understand it. Yeah. But
once you're showing up, it's too late.
Yeah.
To even worry about it.
Right? Just be where it is.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
It was my pleasure.
And the work that you're doing. And you're part of NABO Northwest, which is a fabulous organization of women empowering one another. And I think also finding that tribe and that group of people that helps you even ask the question. I love what you said. You ask yourself, what are one or two things that I did really well, that I nailed? Asking when a friend is struggling through something, also asking them or observing that.
Yes.
Even if it's the biggest fail you've ever witnessed in their life, in yourself or in someone else's, there's always something to hang on to.
There's always a nugget or two.
Yeah.
There's always. It's just it's so much easier to see the negativity, but the truth is showing up is 99% of it. And you showed up and you were courageous and you were brave. We've got to teach our girls to be brave, and that's how we're brave.
Yeah, absolutely. My grandbaby who just turned 3 says, Mama, I'm a mighty girl. I'm like, yes, you are. Because I've never told her she's cute or pretty. I've always told her she's a mighty girl. So I love that. And that there's so many mighty girls and the mighty women in this world, and we just need to remind ourselves and each other of that. Yes, thank you. Yes. Thank you so much for joining us on She Says today, and thank you to you, Tara.
My pleasure.
Do you have a website, I'm assuming?
Yes.
People can check out
PowerfulConnectionsNow.com. So
I love it.
I'm starting my Instagram for Powerful Women Now. Oh. So that will be the one where I'll probably be posting a lot, is my Powerful Women Now on Instagram.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.
She Says is produced in Spokane, Washington by SpokaneTalksOnline.com, which is solely responsible for its content.